The Cleveland Browns have seen their share of quarterbacks, flashy draft picks, short-lived experiments, scandal-plagued veterans. But they've never seen anything quite like Shedeur Sanders. And what just happened in Cleveland didn't start with a touchdown or a perfect throw. It started with smoke, screams, and the sirens of tragedy. On an ordinary night in the Garden Valley neighborhood, chaos struck. An apartment explosion ripped through Rainbow Terrace, killing a father, Cordell Sheffield, as he tried to save his children. If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed. 40 families were left homeless. A community already stretched thin was now facing another brutal chapter in a city all too familiar with loss. And while the rest of the sports world had its eyes glued to Hollywood, to the flashing lights and velvet ropes of the ESPYs, one rookie quarterback quietly decided to take a different path. Shedeur Sanders didn't show up for the cameras. He showed up for Cleveland. In a moment where most athletes would post a donation link or drop a statement crafted by a publicist, Shedeur went straight to the people. No entourage, no press release, no carefully choreographed PR stunt. Just him, in the middle of the ashes, in the heat, in the grief, with the people who needed someone to see them, really see them. And this wasn't just a pop-in-and-leave kind of gesture. Shedeur stayed, for hours, talking with families, listening to mothers who didn't know where their kids would sleep that night, hugging children who lost not just their homes, but their sense of safety. Then he went a step further. He organized an event, a literal celebration, called the Garden Valley Fun Fest. An entire block transformed into a space for healing. There was food, music, games, local vendors, and, of course, footballs flying through the air as Shedeur played catch with neighborhood kids who, for just one afternoon, got to feel joy again. It was fun, but it was also something deeper. A moment of relief, a pause from the pain, a space for community to remember what togetherness feels like. And the critics? Oh, they came fast. Why didn't he go to the ESPYs? He's a rookie. He should be networking, not playing hero. What if something happens in that neighborhood? Why is he taking that risk? The internet had its usual opinions, but Shedeur's response was simple and unwavering. God told me to come out here. Not a quote meant for headlines, not a soundbite for sponsorship, just conviction. And here's where the story takes a turn, because this wasn't just an act of kindness. It was leadership. In a league obsessed with measurables, arm strength, 40-yard dash times, verticals, what Shedeur showed can't be captured in a stat sheet. This was emotional intelligence, courage, presence, and presence is everything. It's easy to send money. It's easy to tweet thoughts and prayers. But showing up in person, in the middle of a hurting city when no one expects it, that's rare, that's powerful, and that's exactly what Shedeur did. And let's not ignore the context. He's not a first-round pick. He doesn't have job security. He's not a millionaire 10 times over yet. He's still fighting for a spot on the depth chart, still learning the playbook, still being watched under a microscope by coaches and executives. But even with all that pressure, he chose people over polish, community over comfort. And guess what? People noticed. Community leaders didn't just thank him, they praised him. Not because he donated a big check or snapped a selfie with a local politician, but because he treated people like human beings. He listened, he asked questions, he played with kids, and didn't once look at his phone. For the families who lost everything, it wasn't about having a celebrity visit. It was about being reminded that they weren't forgotten, that someone cared enough to be there, to stay, and to give them a few moments of joy in the middle of devastation. And this is so much about how Shedeur is choosing to navigate his NFL career. He's not chasing virality. He's not angling for media love. He's building something slower, stronger, and far more impactful. Trust. Inside the Browns organization, that trust is growing. Coaches have started talking about his poise, not just in practice, but in life. Veterans who've seen hundreds of rookies come and go are taking notice. Because Shedeur isn't just checking boxes. He's setting a tone. And culture? That starts with tone. He doesn't need to shout. He doesn't need to sell himself. He just shows up every time, whether it's a quarterback room or the middle of a burned-out apartment complex. Shedeur leads the same way, quietly, consistently, and with intention. That's not just admirable. It's rare, especially in a league where image often outruns substance. Let's talk about how this changes things. In a sports culture that's grown cynical about athlete activism, where players are expected to stick to football or risk backlash, Shedeur's approach is different. He's not protesting. He's not preaching. He's participating. And that participation is impossible to ignore. By stepping into a forgotten part of Cleveland, not as a savior, but as a neighbor, Shedeur reframed what leadership can look like in the NFL. And that's a big deal. Because for every fan watching from home, for every child throwing a football in the street, for every young athlete trying to figure out what success really means, Shedeur just gave them an answer. Success isn't just signing autographs. It's signing up to serve. And whether the NFL wants to spotlight it or not, this is part of the game now. This is what people are watching. Not just what you do on Sundays, but how you show up the rest of the week. It's easy to forget that athletes are human, that they carry the same doubts, fears, and pressures as the rest of us. And it's even easier to expect them to be perfect. But Shedeur isn't trying to be perfect. He's trying to be present. And in 2025, that might be the most radical thing an NFL rookie can do. So where does this leave us? It leaves us with a new kind of quarterback. One who isn't defined by his draft slot, his highlight reel, or the size of his social following, but by his heart, his consistency, his decision, time and time again, to stand with people instead of stand above them. And if he keeps showing up like this, on the field and in the streets, Cleveland won't just remember him as a quarterback. They'll remember him as a cornerstone. The kind of cornerstone you build around. The kind of cornerstone who doesn't just win games, but wins trust. And in a league still learning how to balance spectacle with sincerity, Shedeur Sanders is already showing what that balance looks like. Not with a trophy, not with a speech, but with a simple act. Being there, even when no one else was. There's a saying in football, you can't teach heart. Talent, sure. Mechanics, of course. Even game sense can be coached. But heart? That's either in you or it isn't. And with Shedeur Sanders, it's not just in him. It leads him. That's what separates this story from a usual feel-good sports clip. Because this isn't about a nice gesture that gets turned into a viral TikTok. This is about a pattern, a philosophy, a way of moving to the world that challenges what we've been conditioned to expect from professional athletes, especially quarterbacks. Quarterbacks, after all, are often groomed into polished corporate figures. Good posture, good sound bites, good brand alignment. Their job is to be the face of the franchise, sure, but not too opinionated, not too unconventional, and definitely not too unpredictable. Shedeur is flipping that playbook on its head. He's not erratic. He's not rebellious. He's deliberate. That decision to skip the ESPYs, that wasn't made lightly. That was made in full awareness of what the media would say, what critics would tweet, and what some executives might privately whisper. But he made it anyway, because the call wasn't coming from a PR rep. It was coming from inside, from conviction, from a belief that showing up in Garden Valley mattered more than walking a red carpet in L.A. And in a way, this was Shedeur's first big NFL decision, and it didn't happen on the field. It happened in a neighborhood where people were grieving. It happened when he chose community over career optics. And it's exactly that decision-making instinct, the one rooted in values over vanity, that could make him a franchise quarterback in more than just title. People often ask, can he lead when evaluating a rookie QB? Well, what's more leadership than showing up first? When there's nothing to gain, when the cameras aren't guaranteed, when the risk outweighs the reward. Because that's what Shedeur did. And the impact didn't stop at the event. It's still rippling. Local businesses saw a boost in visibility. Kids from the area are still talking about the time the Browns quarterback came to their block party. Parents felt seen. Organizers felt supported. And perhaps most importantly, the memory of Cordell Sheffield, the father who died shielding his stepchildren, was honored in a way that went beyond flowers or platitudes. Shedeur didn't just memorialize the man. He amplified his story. He let the community know your heroes matter, too. Even if the news cycle moved on. Even if no national headlines came. Even if the NFL never acknowledged it. And that matters more than we can measure. Because this wasn't just about what Shedeur did. It was about what he didn't have to do. And that kind of leadership always leaves a mark. Inside the Browns organization, whispers are turning into conversations. Coaches are noting how Shedeur carries himself in meetings. Focused, prepared, unshaken. How he asks questions that rookies usually don't. How he watches film like a vet. But now, they're also talking about how he represents the team. In a league where off-field drama can derail a season, having a rookie quarterback who becomes a symbol of integrity, that's not a luxury. That's a gift, and it's not going unnoticed. There's buzz in the building. Quiet at first, but growing louder. Not just about Shedeur's arm or his decision-making under pressure, but about his presence, about what he brings to the culture, about how his teammates talk about him when he's not in the room. There's a kind of gravitational pull to people who live with purpose. They draw others in not by force, but by example. And Shedeur is drawing people in. He's creating standards, not by barking orders or thumping his chest, but by doing the work, by showing up, by being who he says he is. And in Cleveland, a city that's been burned by promises before, that kind of consistency is golden. It builds trust. And trust is the foundation of every winning team. Meanwhile, outside the locker room, something else is happening. The public is starting to recalibrate. Fans who were skeptical of the Deion Sanders effect, afraid that Shedeur might be more flash than substance, are now realizing that the kid is nothing like the stereotype. Yes, he has confidence. Yes, he knows who his father is. But Shedeur isn't trying to replicate prime time. He's building something quieter, stronger, and more rooted in something that can't be shaken by a bad game or a viral headline. He's becoming the kind of quarterback Cleveland hasn't had in decades, a civic leader. That term gets tossed around a lot, usually when an athlete donates a check or makes an ad about giving back. But this is different. Shedeur isn't just lending his name. He's lending his presence, his time. And in 2025, when time is the most valuable currency we have, that means everything, especially to a city like Cleveland, because Cleveland remembers. It remembers when athletes used the city as a stepping stone, when stars talked a big game about loyalty, only to bail when things got hard. Cleveland knows disappointment. It knows heartbreak, and it doesn't trust easily. But what Shedeur did in Garden Valley, that cracked something open. It said, I see you. And maybe for the first time in a long time, a Browns quarterback is being seen as more than just a guy under center. He's being seen as one of them. And look, this isn't a crown Shedeur too early. He still has to earn that starting job. He still has to prove himself on Sundays. None of this guarantees success in the NFL, but it does guarantee something more rare, loyalty. If Shedeur becomes a starter, the city will ride for him, not just because of his stats, but because of his soul, because he showed up when he didn't have to. And if he doesn't become the starter right away, the city will still respect him, because he's already done more in one offseason than some players do in entire careers. And that's the magic of moments like this. They echo, they endure, they create loyalty that no marketing campaign can buy. So now the question isn't just, how good can Shedeur Sanders be? It's, what kind of legacy is he building? Because what he's done so far, the way he's carried himself, the way he's led, the way he's prioritized community over optics, suggests he's not just building a football career. He's building a movement that says, you don't have to wait until you're a superstar to lead. You don't have to be perfect to show up. You just have to care and act on that care. And in an era where everyone's trying to go viral, Shedeur is going visceral. He's making people feel something. Not just Browns fans, not just football diehards, but anyone watching who's tired of empty gestures and hungry for real substance. Because at the end of the day, this is what greatness looks like. It's not the highlight reel or the award speech. It's the moment when no one's watching, when the cameras are gone, when the smoke has cleared, and you're still there, with your cleats in the dirt, your heart on your sleeve, and your mind on the people who need you most. That's Shedeur Sanders, a rookie quarterback, a community leader, and maybe, just maybe, the future of football's heart. And while the city of Cleveland continues to buzz with speculation over Shedeur Sanders' football future, the echoes of what he did off the field refuse to fade. Because this isn't a one-day headline. This is the kind of story that sticks, quietly, persistently, reshaping how people define greatness in sports. Weeks after the Garden Valley Fun Fest, kids are still throwing around footballs they got signed by Sanders. Local residents still share stories about him laughing with elders, helping move chairs, and giving hugs like he belonged there his whole life. The ripple effect is real. Local businesses that participated in the event reported a spike in customers, and more importantly, a renewed sense of pride in a neighborhood so often overlooked. The deeper truth is this: Shedeur didn't just visit a community. He acknowledged its pain, amplified its voice, and showed what solidarity looks like when it's done right. And in doing so, he exposed something else: the NFL's massive blind spot when it comes to community credibility versus media currency. Because here's the thing: the league still prefers its stars buttoned up, branded, and largely detached. Athletes are often encouraged to stick to carefully curated narratives. Smile for the cameras. Shake the right hands. Say the right thing. But what Shedeur is doing, it doesn't fit neatly into the NFL's traditional framework. It challenges it, and that scares people. You can feel it in the way media coverage has struggled to frame him. Is he too spiritual? Too quiet? Too unorthodox? He doesn't fit the loud, brash archetype of his father, nor does he mimic the generic media-trained rookie prototype. And because of that, he's forcing the football world to rethink what leadership and star power can look like in this new generation. What's even more compelling is that Shedeur hasn't asked for any of this attention. He didn't call the press to Garden Valley. He didn't ask for interviews. Everything that's come out of that day, every story, every photo, every video, was captured by the people for the people. And that's why it resonated. Because it wasn't staged. It was real. And make no mistake, authenticity is Shedeur Sanders' superpower. It's what sets him apart in an era of polished statements and filtered personas. It's what allows him to connect, not just perform. Whether he's in a film room breaking down coverages or sitting on a folding chair talking to a grandmother about her lost apartment, he's the same person. No switch flips, no persona shift, just presence. That presence is now becoming one of the most talked about qualities within the Browns facility. Players have started bringing their families around him, not because he's famous, but because he's safe, because he listens, because he doesn't walk around like the room owes him something. That's rare. Even in his quietest moments, Sanders is redefining influence. During practice, when he's not at the center, he's watching, intently, asking questions that show depth, pulling aside rookies and giving tips that make others double-take. He's become a glue guy without even realizing it. And the coaching staff is paying attention. Whispers are turning into real discussions, not just about giving him more reps, but about the kind of culture they want to build. The Browns have had talent before. What they haven't had consistently is alignment. Someone who unites the locker room, the city, and the mission. Could Shedeur be that guy? The question is no longer whether he has the mechanics or the pedigree. It's whether the organization is ready to embrace a player who may not play the game of politics the way others do, but plays the game of life with impeccable integrity. Even analysts who were initially skeptical are starting to shift tone, not because Shedeur suddenly became a better quarterback in their eyes, but because they realized they'd been evaluating him with the wrong metrics. They were looking for a flash, for controversy, for ego, and when they didn't find it, they assumed something was missing. But in reality, something was being added: stability, depth, humanity. And that's the quiet storm Shedeur is bringing to Cleveland. He's not loud, but he's clear. He's not flashy, but he's consistent. He's not trying to be the next big thing. He's trying to be the right thing. And maybe that's what this team, this city, and this league need more than anything right now. Let's talk about legacy for a moment. Not the kind etched in stats or trophies, but the kind that lives in neighborhoods, in gratitude, in whispered stories passed between families who say, You know, he showed up for us. That's legacy. If Shedeur never becomes a Pro Bowler, he's already earned a legacy some players never touch. If he never wins a Super Bowl, he's already shown a level of character that will outlive his playing career. But the real twist? He could do it all. He's got the arm, the IQ, the footwork, the competitive fire. And now he's got something even more powerful, a city that believes in him. That belief isn't manufactured. It wasn't bought with commercials or shoe deals. It was earned in the ashes of an apartment explosion, earned in pickup football games with kids who needed to laugh again, earned in the hours he stayed when he could have left. That's what Cleveland saw, and that's what Cleveland won't forget. So as training camp approaches and the preseason chatter grows louder, Shedeur Sanders won't need to do much talking. His actions already said everything. He's not here to take part. He's here to take responsibility. And in the process, he might just change what we expect from the quarterback position, not just on the field, but far beyond it. That's the story unfolding in Cleveland. And if you're not watching closely, you might miss the rise of something we haven't seen in a long, long time. A quarterback who leads by living it. A leader who wins before the whistle. A legacy already in motion.